Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Depending on where you're from, I'd like to wish you a very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Now, this webinar is actually part 3 of our IT Security Masterclass. Last week on day 1 and day 2, my friend Abhilash has spoken to you about Active Directory, Cloud, and Windows security. Today, we'll cover the fundamentals of SIEM and how you can perform a real-time analysis of alerts from across your network. Next week, we'll have the 4th and final part of the series, and we'll cover interesting use cases and real-life examples. So before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Ram Vaidyanathan, and I'm a cybersecurity specialist at ManageEngine's IT security and SIEM solutions team. I've been with ManageEngine for close to 7 years now, and in my role, I get to learn about the latest attack methods hackers are using to compromise sensitive data. I get to speak to people like you and understand the latest technologies companies use to defend themselves. So at this moment, I would like to make sure that you can all hear me loud and clear and that my screen is also visible. So if everything is fine, could you please confirm this to me over chat, please? We'll just take about 10 seconds for this. Again, I'm just looking for a few confirmations from people that everything is fine, there are no technical glitches, and we can get started. Thank you so much for those confirmations. I've got a lot of confirmations. Thank you, Michael, Sarah, Caesar, Tommy, Julia, John, Janice. Thank you all so much for those confirmations. So as we embark on this journey for the next 45 minutes or so, let's think about why this topic is important. We've got to know about the fundamentals of SIEM to protect against all the sophisticated threats that are out there. Attackers are using new and sophisticated tactics, and they attempt to avoid detection by traditional security tools. For example, in the last couple of years, fileless malware and living off the land attacks have become extremely common. The fact that organizations are also adopting new technologies such as the cloud and the advent of smart and connected devices has given attackers a larger surface area to work with and find vulnerabilities. This becomes even more serious during the current times when many people are working from home. So to make sure that your organization is well protected, you need a SIEM to bring all of this together and play defense for your company. In this session, we'll look at some of the important components of a SIEM solution. You'll soon see how your security operations center can benefit from a good SIEM solution. Having said that, here are the objectives for today. The first thing we'll do is get an understanding about what a SOC really is, what is the benefit of having a SOC, and who are the people within it, and how a good SIEM solution integrates with a security operations center. After that, we can discuss the technologies or capabilities of a good SIEM solution. What kind of data should we be bringing in and analyzing? How can we detect and respond to threats? Now, for this part of the session, I'll refer to ManageEngine Block 360 and go over how the solution enables you to build an effective security operations center. And then finally, this point here, the last point on the agenda, key performance indicators. What are the important metrics you need to monitor to ensure that your SIEM is working at maximum efficiency? So that's what we'll end the webinar with. One thing I would like to point out to you right now, Antonia has also asked the question. Yes, this is going to be available as a recording. We'll be emailing the recording over to you within, let's say, a couple of business days. And we'll also be sharing the slides with you over email. So let's start with point number 1 on the agenda. What is a security operations center? Now, just take a look at this slide. This is what a security operations center may look like. It's a place where all the security professionals of an organization work out of. So you can see that the SOC is a place that has all of these big terminals and systems and large dashboards that show exactly what's happening in the network at any point of time. This scene looks like it's just out of a movie, but the SOC is more than just a place. It's also a function. Now, I've seen many definitions of a security operations center, but this definition is probably the best that I've ever come across. So I'll just read it out loud for you. A security operations center is a centralized function that protects the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So you might have come across the CIA triad, that is a confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These 3 things are important for any company. So a SOC will protect this. And it's going to protect a company's valuable resources, assets, and data by making use of people, processes, and technology in the best way possible. So this happens to be the overall definition. But let's kind of break it down a bit and see what exactly you need to do to achieve all of this. Well, it turns out that there are four main things that you need to do efficiently with a SIEM solution. And these are: point number one, collect logs. Second, ingest these logs. You've got to be able to detect and analyze threats, and finally respond to these threats. So as you can see here, the first thing that you need to do is collect logs in your SIEM solution. And the logs must be collected from multiple sources in the network. After all, you can only monitor and analyze what you collect in the first place. So logs must be collected from things like Active Directory, network devices like routers, switches, and firewalls, employee workstations, member servers and databases, third-party applications, in-house applications, file servers, your cloud infrastructure. Logs should also be collected from your endpoint security devices and intrusion detection systems. And to add to all of this, you've got to have the ability to collect custom logs in unique formats. Because think about it, you could be a very unique company, you could be working with unique applications that generate logs in very unique formats, and your SIEM solution has got to be able to make sense of all of that data. So this is part of log collection, and it is going to be definitely very important. But beyond collecting logs, you've also got to be having the ability to ingest logs. Because if you just collect the raw logs, there is no way that a security professional can browse through the entire data. However, when the data is ingested by a SIEM solution, real-time alerts can be generated. You can use correlation rules. You can also use anomaly detection techniques, and you can identify threats. In this way, the ingestion of the logs gives you some actionable information. It gives you some enriched information. And then you've got step number 3, detect and analyze this information. So in the previous step, our SIEM solution ingests all the logs and gives us some enriched information. Now, in this step, we are asking some probing questions. We are asking questions such as, what information is important and what information is not so important? We need to look at all the alerts that have been raised and figure out which of those warrants further investigation. If any alert warrants further investigation, it then becomes an incident, and investigation should be done using techniques such as forensic analysis, triaging, and analyzing the complete timeline of the incident. In this way, you're hunting for the root cause and proactively keeping your organization secure. And then you've got the fourth step, the last step, respond. Here, the SOC team reviews all the detected threats and performs incident response activities. So with all of this said, you can probably see why the SOC enables you to discover events quickly, understand your security posture, and get the bigger context of any threat. So now let's talk about some practical things. Let's talk about how you can organize your security operations center. So remember, in the previous slide, we spoke about how you collect and ingest logs, right? So that's what your SIEM solution is going to do. It's going to connect to all of these multiple log sources across your network, disparate log sources across your network, and it's going to collect and ingest all of these logs. Once these logs are collected, you can apply correlation rules and anomaly detection techniques, and your SIEM solution is going to generate some alerts for you. These alerts can then be sent over to the tier 1 SOC analysts. Now, who are these people? They are your people with eyes on the glass. They will look at all the alerts they receive and will perform an initial analysis. Now, if you were to go and sit next to a tier 1 analyst, depending upon the size of the organization, these people may receive a humongous number of logs every minute, and it can get quite overwhelming. So yes, the tier 1 analyst will do the initial analysis and figure out if the alert is important enough and needs to be looked at further. And usually they do not spend more than 7 minutes looking at these alerts. That's the general rule of thumb. 7 minutes would be the time they usually take to make a decision on whether the alert needs to be investigated further. In case the alert needs to be investigated further, they can then mark it as an incident and send it over to the SOC analyst tier 2. Now, before sending these incidents to the tier 2 analyst, the tier 1 analyst sometimes also gives their view on the priority of the incident. So they may give some intelligence about which incident needs to be tackled first. The level 2 analysts then perform a comprehensive investigation on the incidents. They need to figure out exactly why the incident occurred. So they will do things like a forensic analysis and gather evidence. They'll find answers to questions such as what happened, when did it happen, who did it, and where did they do it. So these are the four vital W's: the what, when, who, and where. Those are the kind of questions that the tier 2 analyst will ask. To do a forensic analysis, the level 2 analyst could use sophisticated tools that could enable elastic search and help them drill down or zero in on a problem. Or they could write queries on a SIEM solution, and the solution will list out for them the exact information that they are looking for. Apart from using real-time data, tier 2 analysts also rely on information gathered from past events stored in archives. So they'll put both the real-time information on the one hand and the archive information on the other hand. They'll put both of these together to get the full context of any incident. The objective of the tier 2 analyst here is to build an entire incident timeline and see the sequence of events that led to the incident. To build a timeline of incidents, the tier 2 analyst will actively investigate what a particular user on whom an alert is generated did over time. They'll ask probing questions such as, what did that user do yesterday? What did they do the day before? What did they do last month? And how does that compare to the user's own baseline of expected activity? How does it compare to the baseline of expected behavior for other users? How does it compare to other users in their own peer group? So the tier 2 analyst will ask all of these probing questions. Let's take a very simple example. Let's say that it's an accountant, obviously from the accounting department that's under investigation. And let's say that this particular accountant has done a lot of anomalous activities over time. So they have come under the radar of the tier 2 analyst. So what the tier 2 analyst will do is they will compare this accountant's behavior with the accountant's own behavior in the past, the accountant's baseline behavior, and see if there's a huge deviation there. They may also compare this accountant's behavior with other users in the overall organization. And they may also compare this accountant's behavior with in the accounting department. So they may do different kinds of analysis here. And this last thing that I told you about, comparing this accountant's behavior with other users in his or her own peer group, that's going to be very, very critical. That's called peer group analysis. And if this accountant shows behavior that might be deviating from his or her own baseline, but is still okay from the peer group's point of view, then the risk is not as much, right? Because there are other accountants in the user's peer group who show that same kind of behavior. So those are the kind of things that the SOC analyst tier 2 will look at. And as you can probably guess by now, at this level, the investigation needs to be quite deep. Once the tier 2 analysts complete their investigation, they can add all of the intelligence that they gain and send it over to the incident handler. The incident handler will then be taking actions to mitigate any threat. Okay, so these three roles that we just spoke about, the tier 1 analyst, the tier 2 analyst, and the incident handler, these are traditional roles in any security operations center. But in addition to this, you can also have some non-traditional, and I would like to call these next generation roles in a security operations center. But these are going to be very, very critical if you want to actually build a very effective security operations center. You can have something called a threat hunting team. And this team takes all the information available and performs hunting activities to look for unknown threats that are not known yet. So this hunt team is not looking at correlation rules or alerts. Those are looked at by the tier 1 and tier 2 analysts. But this team, they look for threats that are not identified yet. For example, they can continuously look at third-party intelligence feeds and see how to use this information to secure the organization. The hunt teams in larger organizations also actively engage with experts on the latest threat intelligence to stay ahead of attackers. So they may liaise with threat intelligence providers on a real-time basis to be on top of the latest attacks. And then you can also have other roles. For example, you can have the insider threat team. And as the name suggests, this team, this sub-team within the SOC will be responsible for taking care of any insider threat situation to its logical end. And many a time, the insider threat team within the SOC works very, very closely with the HR team, because the HR team can give a lot of non-technical indicators about the behavior of a particular user or employee. And the technical indicators and the non-tech indicators can be put together to come up with a proper timeline of what really happened with that particular insider threat situation. So that's what the insider threat team does. You can also have a sub-team called the red team. Now, the red team looks for vulnerabilities and loopholes in your security posture. They will actively conduct hacking tests and share intelligence with the rest of the team. For example, the red team may send a fake phishing email to the entire organization, and they'll be actively watching which employee actually clicks on that fake phishing email and downloads that malicious attachment. Once they have that list of employees, they can customize training for those employees. So that's how the red team is going to be very, very useful. Alternatively, they can also drop USB sticks in the parking lot and see what employee or what group of employees actually picks up that USB stick and plugs it into their computer. So they can customize training for those employees. The red team can also work very, very closely with the blue team and conduct these red team, blue team exercises so that the overall efficiency of the SOC, the overall effectiveness of the SOC improves. And then take a look at this point here, 24/7 operations. Now, the decision here, if you want to operate your SOC 24/7, it depends on multiple factors, such as the nature of your business, the size of your business, and also the sensitivity of the resources that you work with. But as we see the threat landscape evolving and the number of vulnerable endpoints increasing, you may actually want to do this. You may want your SOC to operate round the clock to ensure that the business is never impacted. And this is only going to increase your resiliency. So having said this background, let's now see how technology can be used to enable a security operations center. Numerous research reports say that attackers are lurking around in networks for months, moving laterally and gradually escalating privileges. Some studies put this number at as high as 200 days. Think about it, 200 days. That's more than 6 months of an attacker staying in an organization's network, gradually escalating privileges and taking that network as their own, right? And pretty much stealing any kind of data there. 6.5 months. So the technology you use should reduce the mean time to detect and the mean time to resolve security incidents, and thus create value for your business. For this part of the presentation, I will draw heavily from the example of Managed Engine Log 360, which is a comprehensive SIEM solution. Using Log 360, businesses can gain full control over their network and solve all of their log management and network security challenges. But obviously, it's not a given that you are using Managed Engine Log 360. You can use any SIEM solution, any effective SIEM solution could do the job for you. But make sure whatever solution you use, you have all of these capabilities within that SIEM solution. So here are some of the main capabilities right here on this slide. So you've got to have very effective security analytics. You've got to have threat intelligence, user and entity behavior analytics or UEBA, effective data security, cloud monitoring, compliance management, and then finally, you've got to have incident detection and resolution. What we'll do now is we'll go over some of these capabilities that you've got to have in place. The first is the right technology to collect data. Like I said previously, it's important to acquire, ingest, and make sense of data from different types of log sources. These would include security devices, network devices, applications, databases, employee workstations, file shares, cloud infrastructures, your mailboxes, your Exchange server, your Active Directory environment. Pretty much everything on the network needs to be monitored, and you've got to be able to collect data from all of these different things. So in your SIEM solution, you need a device discovery capability that allows you to automatically discover all the devices on the network and start monitoring them in real time. So we'll just see how to do this in Log 360 right now. We'll look at how automatic device discovery happens in an effective SIEM solution. So let me quickly go into the Log 360 console. So this is the main Log 360 console here. And you can see that this is an integrated and unified SIEM solution that brings several components onto one console. And this component here, it's called Event Log Analyzer. It's going to look at your network devices. So things like your routers, switches, and firewalls, your applications, your databases. So it's going to look at all of these things, and it's going to bring it onto this console. The module itself is called Event Log Analyzer. So let me quickly go into the Event Log Analyzer module, which is the log management module of Log360. And I'll show to you how automatic discovery of devices happen. So just go over to the settings tab. And here under configuration, you've got manage devices. So let's go into manage devices. And we can take an example of syslog devices, which are devices that use a syslog format, things like your routers, switches, and firewalls. And let's see how you can add a new syslog device for monitoring. So just go into syslog devices and click here in, go into add devices. And here you have the option. You can enter these device names manually, or you can do the more intelligent thing. You can just discover and add. And here you just specify the IP range or the CIDR. It's completely up to you. And once you follow through the steps and hit scan, all of those devices that fall within this specified IP range, well, they're going to be discovered for you. And then from there, you just need to choose the devices that you want to set up for real-time monitoring. And once you do that, all of those devices are going to be monitored in real time for you. So basically, Log360 will start getting logs from all of those devices and giving you real-time security analytics from those syslog devices. Just like syslog devices, you can add your Windows devices for monitoring as well by going in over here and then following through a very, very similar process. You can add other devices for monitoring as well by following a very, very similar process. And here under status, you can see that in case there's a problem with collecting logs, it's going to alert you right here. So in case there is some problem with log collection, you're going to know about it right here in the dashboard, and you can take the necessary steps to rectify that situation. Now, apart from automatically discovering these devices, your syslog, Windows, and other network devices, you can also, use Log360 for monitoring logs from other sources as well. So you can get in your application sources, things like your SQL servers, your Oracle databases, all of those things can be monitored in Log360. You can also get your logs from your threat sources, such as your data loss prevention systems, your endpoint protection systems, your antivirus systems, all of those things. You can also get your logs from vulnerability scanners from multiple vendors, such as OpenVAS, Nmap, Nessus, Nexpose, and Qualys. Okay, now all of these are provided right out of the box, right? So these logs are supported right out of the box. But let's say that your company is unique and you deal with very unique data types or log formats. And that is where you actually make use of the custom log parser. So just going to import log data. And you have several ways in which you can import the logs. So let's say that your company is working with an IoT device, for example. And obviously an IoT device is also going to generate logs, but it's going to generate logs in some very unique format. So you can just import all of those logs, using any of these different ways. And once you import these logs, you've just got to teach Log360 what those logs actually stand for. And that's going to be a one-time exercise. And you can schedule the log import at a time of your choice. So let's say that you want to do the log import every morning at 7 a.m. You can set that up, and Log360 is going to automatically import all of those logs from that particular configured device. And it's going to give you those real-time security analytics from logs of that particular device. So that's how the import, the custom log parser actually works. And that's how you can actually import the logs. Now, all of these things are great, right? The import, the log data, you can also make use of all of these things which are built into the solution. You can get your logs from your network devices, your application sources, your vulnerability scanners, and your threat sources. But one other very, very important thing is threat intelligence. And you've got to be able to connect to a threat intelligence feeds and bring in all of those logs as well. And that's where this is going to help. So let's go into threat management. And this is the interface for managing your threat intelligence feeds in Log 360. So here you see that there is something called the default server that is built in Log 360. So this particular default server is a sticks and taxi based threat feed that is going to be available for you right out of the box. And this connects with 600 million malicious IPs, URLs, and domains. It analyzes them on a daily basis. And in case there is something wrong here, it's going to alert you right then and there if you navigate over to the alerts tab. So this is going to be very, very effective. But apart from this default server, you can also add your own threat intelligence feed by going into add new server, giving all of these credentials, and then clicking on add server. And that threat intelligence feed is also going to be configured for you. You also have advanced threat analytics. This is an integration with Bright Cloud, Webroot's Bright Cloud threat intelligence feed provider. And this is going to give you more advanced threat analytics, more advanced intelligence. And one rule of thumb is, you generally want to go with multiple threat intelligence feeds. You don't want to settle with just one or two threat intelligence feeds. Talking to multiple analysts and a lot of our own customers, we recommend that you work with at least 3 different threat intelligence feeds to get that comprehensive data. So you can actually enable this here, the advanced threat analytics. And I'll just show you how this is going to be very, very useful for you. From here, if you navigate over to reports, just use the drop down to go into threats and then go into threat analytics. You can see how this is going to be very, very useful. Just take a look at this as I scroll down. This particular report is going to tell you all the different times at which threats were detected, the threat sources, or the IP address, the malicious IP address where the threat is actually emanating from. You also get to see the device that is under attack. And from the looks of it, it seems like there is one particular server or one particular device that's constantly under attack. Probably this is a business critical server and you have causes for concern here. You get to see the threat category, and you also get to see something called the reputation score, which can range anywhere from 0 to 100. The higher the score, the better it is for you. The lesser the score, you have more reasons to worry because the reputation is low. Now, you can also go into view over here, and you get granular details about this particular threat that has been noticed. You get a recommendation on what to do with that particular IP or URL. You can also whitelist this source if that is something that you want to do. If you really deem this to be not a threat, you can whitelist it. And this is also very, very effective information to work with. You can see the geo information, where this threat is actually emanating from. And you can use this in conjunction with something called the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which lists out for you certain threat actors that are active around the world. So you can make use of the geo information along with information that is available in the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and you can get more details to work with, and you can be that much more prepared to take care of any situation. So that is how threat intelligence feeds are going to be very, very useful for you. The next thing that I would like to talk to you about is event correlation. And this is another very big capability to have, very, very important capability to have in your SIEM solution. Because getting all the data to one place is good. But on top of that, you need to perform advanced event correlation to detect both known and unknown types of attacks. This is the stage of actually ingesting the data. So you absolutely need predefined correlation rules which solve specific challenges and use cases. And with these correlation rules, you can look for things like suspicious software installations, ransomware attacks, cryptojacking, worm activity, and so much more. But apart from your predefined correlation rules, you also need your ability to build your own correlation rules. And that is going to help you defend against new types of attacks, and also types of attacks that your organization is specifically exposed to. So both, the ability to work with custom correlation rules and the solution giving you predefined correlation rules, both of these things are going to be important for you. So we'll just see how this works in Log 360 right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to navigate over to the correlation tab. And with correlation, what are we actually doing? We are not looking at one particular action happening in isolation. So let's say that event A happens all by itself. It may or may not be malicious. Event B happening all by itself may or may not be malicious. But if it is a sequence of events, let's say event A happens, and then quickly within 2 minutes, event B happens. Event C happens within 2 minutes, and then event D happens within 2 minutes. So this sequence, right, A, B, C, D, that could be something very strange. That could be indicative of an attack. So that is what we are trying to do with correlation. So let's take a very, very simple example of a brute force attack. And in this particular report, you get to see a certain number of brute force attacks that have happened in the network, possible brute force attacks that have happened in the network. And when you go into the event timeline, you get to see why Log360 has marked these as brute force attacks, possible brute force attacks in the network. So it tells you the exact sequence of events that led to this being classified as a brute force attack. So you can see that at this particular time on this date, it all started with an account failing to log on to a device in the net until finally you have a successful logon, and it all happened within a few seconds. And this is being detected as a possible brute force attack by Log360. Likewise, if you go over here under ransomware attack, you've got the coronavirus ransomware detection. Now, ransomware has become all the rage in recent times. Just in the last 1 year, we've had the coronavirus ransomware, very aptly named, that was released by attackers, and many organizations fell victim to the coronavirus ransomware. Likewise, there was another ransomware strain called the snake ransomware strain that also took down a lot of organizations. So in Manage Engine, our endeavor is to actually build the product so that we listen to our customers and we build all of these correlation rules within the product. So, just as an example, we built a correlation rule for the coronavirus ransomware. But all of these things, right, like I said, these are all built-in correlation rules. You've got to have the ability to build your own correlation rule, your custom correlation rules. And you can do that by going up here into Manage Rule and then creating your correlation rule. So let's take an example here of a custom correlation rule. Let's say that there is a successful Windows logon in the network. And not only is it any successful logon, let's say that this successful logon is happening from a remote IP address that is deemed to be malicious by our threat intelligence feed. So this is action one, and already quite a few things are happening as far as action one goes. And within 2 minutes of action one happening, let's say that a process gets started. And let's call this action two. So here we have a process being started. And within 2 minutes of action two happening, let's say that a firewall policy is being modified. That is action three. So already you can see that there are actions that are happening from in different parts of the network, right? So you've got to have that capability in your SIEM solution. This is fundamental to any SIEM. You've got to have that capability to build correlation rules from across the network. So anyways, this is action three. And then let's say within 2 minutes of this happening, a file is being modified. Now, isn't this a very, very strange sequence? This could in fact be an example of an IT sabotage, and you can build a correlation rule to take care of this situation in case it ever happens. Now, from here, you just need to hit create to create this particular correlation rule, and it can then show up in this list of correlation rules. And then from here, you just need to activate it. And then if you check this off, whenever these conditions that you have specified in this correlation rule, they are satisfied, this is also going to reach you as an alert over here. And then from the alerts tab, you can run a workflow so that you take certain actions and you can mitigate that particular threat. So that's how your threat intelligence feed your correlation rule builder, your alerts feature, and your workflow feature can all work together in an effective SIEM solution. And this is going to be a very, very critical capability for you to have. The next fundamental thing in any SIEM solution is log forensics. Obviously, the best thing to do is stop attackers before they are successful. But what if an attacker somehow gets in and is lurking around in the network? Log forensics becomes very critical in this case. You need a click-based elastic search engine with which you can analyze complex incidents, gather evidence, and discover the root cause. So we'll see how log forensics works in Log 360 right now. So again, I'm going to go back into my event log analyzer module. And we've got to go into search to look at log forensics. So I'm just going to do a few things. So please watch closely. Let me quickly hit the search button. And for this specified time range, I'm going to get to see all the events that are available in my network. Everything from across the network. It's not just one part of the network, but pretty much every log source that that Log 360 is able to connect to. All of those events are going to be visible for you right here. From here, let's say that you're interested in particular events of interest. So we have close to 62,000 events that we need to look at over here, right? And this is going to be very, very difficult to look at for any security analyst. So let's drill down. Let's say that we are looking at Windows events. Just make a selection here and then hit search. And we have a more refined list showing up right here. We have 6,000 events that we need to look at right now. From here, let's say that we are looking at those events where the source is equal to this particular value, Microsoft Windows Security Auditing. Let's just copy this particular value. And I'm going to show you how the advanced query builder actually works. So let me just use this drop down. Set the source is equal to that particular value, and then hit add. So it's going to update this query builder over here, and then you hit search. By the way, you can also do it this manually if you want. So then you hit search, and you're going to get a more refined list. So we are down to about 4,000 logs right now. And from here, let's say that you're interested or you're investigating specific users. So just use the Elasticsearch capability. Just click on username. And you have a list of users arranged in descending order by the number of events. Let's say that Scott has been doing a lot of malicious activity, and Scott is a user who's under investigation. So let's just click on Scott. It's going to update the query builder, and you get to see those 736 events associated with Scott. From here, let's say that you're interested in the processes that were run by Scott. Just go into process name, and you get to see all of these processes. And let's say that, let's assume that this is a malicious process that's been run by Scott, and you get 32 actions associated with this particular malicious process. Just click on that. It updates the query builder, and you get to see those 32 events over here. So in this way, you're able to actually drill down. We started off with about 60,000 different events, right? And we are down to about 32 events right now. So you can keep drilling down into the problem, and you can finally get to the root cause in this way. And this is how a forensic analysis actually works. From here, you can actually save this as an report or an alert or a search, so that you don't have to do this each and every time. In case this is something that you need to look at very, very frequently, or in case you want to be alerted whenever these conditions are satisfied, you can actually save this as an alert. And you can make log forensics actually work very well for you in this way. The next fundamental thing that you want in your SIEM solution is machine learning based analytics. Now, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, anomaly detection was a solution that people opted for apart from the SIEM. So they had their SIEM solution, and usually people would integrate it with an anomaly detection solution. But nowadays, it's become very fundamental to SIEM. So anomaly detection is usually built into any effective SIEM solution nowadays. And you've got to have this capability. This is fundamental to any SIEM. So this is a holistic approach to visualize and mitigate threats by profiling and baselining the expected behavior of all the users and systems in a network. A good anomaly detection platform, it takes about 2 weeks to learn what's normal and what's not normal for a particular user or host in a network on a typical day. So things it learns about comprise of what's the normal number of logons per day for a particular user. What servers or databases does a user typically access, and at what times do they access this, and so on. Anomalies can be based on time, pattern, or count, and depending on what's observed for each user or system, a risk score is given. This is an indication of the degree of risk posed by that particular entity. The SOC analyst can then add all of these users and entities to a watch list to secure their organization in a more effective way. So we'll just take a look at how anomaly detection works in Log360 right now. And I've got Log360 UEBA, which is the anomaly detection module of Log360 open here for you. It's this particular module here. So this is Log360 UEBA. You can just navigate to this from the console. So this is Log360 UEBA. So, and this right here is the dashboard. It shows you at a glance all the anomalies that are happening in the network. Now, I told you that there are 3 different types of anomalies, right? Time, count, and pattern anomalies. So to have a look at these anomalies, we can go into the anomaly reports. And we are looking at network devices. We're looking at Windows devices to be very specific. And we are looking at logon anomalies as an example. Not only that, we are looking at time-based logon anomalies based on users. So already we are doing quite a lot of filtration here. Now take a look at this report as I scroll down. So I'll just stay quiet for about 5 seconds. Do you see what is happening over here? Well, you get to see that there is this particular user who's shown a logon anomaly, right? What is expected from this user is a logon between 4 and 4:15 a.m. But what is actually happening is a logon at 4:15 p.m. So that is the obtained value. And that is being tagged as an anomaly by Log360. And there is a particular risk associated with this anomalous action. And that risk score will be appended to this particular user or associated with this particular user. So this is an example of a time anomaly, right? A logon time anomaly. Let's take a look at another example. Let's take a look at malicious software installation or unusual software installations. So let's go into software and we can do a count-based anomaly right now. Now take a look at this report. So what this tells us is that there's this particular user who's done software installations. So the software, this is the particular software from this particular vendor. So they are working on this particular host. This is where the installation is actually taking place. And the activities are happening. So this is the time at which the activity actually happened. And how many events were obtained? 250 installations happened. When in fact, the threshold is just 7. What is the baseline for this particular user is just 7 such events. And this is being tagged as a count anomaly. Now let's take a look at a pattern anomaly, again, based on software installations. Now take a look at this. The pattern that is being analyzed here is host name, username, and time. And from the looks of it, the host name and username part of the pattern is absolutely fine. This user does work on that host, that is okay. And the time would have also been okay as long as this particular user worked at these times. So this is what is the expected value. But when you put these 3 variables together and you take a look at the actual time at which this activity happened, it happened at 7:07 p.m. We get a pattern anomaly, and Log360 UEBA is tracking this for us. From here, the security analyst can go into view details and they can look at exactly what happened. They get visualization or visual confirmation of what really happened, how far the anomaly is from what is expected. They can also go into the event details and get granular information about that particular anomaly. So all of that information is available for the security analyst here. The anomaly detection feature in Log360 can look at anomalies across different network devices, such as Windows, Unix, and your Cisco routers. You can also look at anomalies across applications such as Active Directory. It can analyze anomalies for your firewall devices from different vendors. You can also look at anomalies for your cloud services, your AWS, Google, and your Azure environments as well. So all of this can be looked at. Now, another very critical capability to have, a fundamental in your SIEM solution, is risk scoring. And we'll just look at how that works right now. So let me go into the user's dashboard. And you can see here at a glance that user one, they have a risk score of 56, which happens to be the highest risk score in the entire network. When you click on this particular user, you can deep dive into the anomalous actions that they have performed over time. So let me just scroll down and show this to you here. So it all seems like it started on this date at this particular time, where they had multiple anomalous activities. They had successful logon attempts, 104 such events when in fact their threshold is just 14. This was followed by multiple file permission changes, multiple system file changes, and then take a look at this. Multiple files were modified by the user. In fact, 204 files or folders were modified by the user when in fact their threshold is just 28. The security analyst can just deep dive, go into the event details, and get to see what those 204 files and folders actually were. What was the target of this potential attacker, this malicious insider threat, maybe, right? What were those 204 files and folders that this person actually touched? You can see all of that over here. So this can give you very good information to take further action. From here, you can just go up top and you get to see the risk score associated with this user when it comes to several things such as insider threats, data exfiltration, compromised accounts, and logon anomalies. So you get to see here that this user has a high risk score of 69 when it comes to insider threats and 70 when it comes to logon, when it comes to compromised accounts. So they are a likely target of that. Okay, I've got a question here from Larry. Is the log 360 agentless or agents have to be installed on endpoints and servers? Very good question, Larry. So you have both the options available to you over here. Log 360 can be both agentless or agent-based. It's totally dependent on you and what you want to do. And even when you go the agent route, the resources that are going to be consumed is very, very less. It's going to be very, very easy for you to install that particular agent. So if you want the logs to be analyzed in real time, if you want it to be like absolutely real time, you want it to be happening right then and there, then you probably want to go down the agent route. But even agentless, it's going to be pretty much real, like real time. It's going to be pretty much instantaneous. So you can go down that route also. It's completely up to you, and it's not going to be resource intensive, even if you go down the agent route. So yes, this is how the risk scoring actually works in your anomaly detection engine. So yeah, we are pretty much at the end of the webinar now. So here I have a slide on metrics that you need to monitor. And I've kind of divided it into two groups: the good metrics that you need to look at and the better metrics. The good metrics are the things that are good to have. Pretty much, any security operations center should have these as a baseline. And these good metrics, well, they are good to look at, but if you want to really, take your monitoring to the next level, you've got to work with some of these better metrics. For example, you've got to look at the percentage of traffic visible. So of all the network devices that you connect to, right, with your SIEM solution, what percentage of the traffic is really visible? So are you able to look, are you able to have visibility over 90% of your network, 95% of your network, maybe 99% of your network? That is something that you've got to be able to track, preferably with your SIEM solution itself. Next up, you've got the percentage of features used. So all the features or capabilities that are available within your SIEM solution, are you making use of all the technology at your disposal? And if so, what's the percentage? What is the attack handling confidence? Are you confident about the way you handle detect and resolve incidents? And if so, what's your confidence level? And then finally, the number of events per analyst hour. On average, how many events do your analysts handle per hour? Anything more than 10 or 11 could mean that your SOC analysts are overwhelmed and it could become a human resources issue. So you've got to rectify that. Okay, so I've got another question here from Masood Rahman. He asks, is it cloud-based or local server-based? So Masood, again, the option is completely yours. So what I've been showing you so far is the on-premises version, but you also have something called Log 360 Cloud, which is a completely SaaS-based application. So you can just deploy it as a SaaS application and you get to use all of those great features. Now, one thing that I would like to say here is that right now there is the features are not 100%. The cloud version does not have all the features that the on-premises version has. But within the next 3 to 4 months, we are diligently working, and within the next 3 to 4 months, you should have feature parity. So everything that you can do with an on-premises deployment, you can do in the cloud-based deployment as well. So I've got one more question from Mario, and he asks, is the Log 360 one app or is several apps consolidated into one dashboard? So yes, it's actually several apps consolidated into one dashboard, Mario. So what happens is, you have the option of just, deploying one particular application, whether if you just want to go with the event log analyzer module, which is going to look at your log management side of things, you can do that. If you just want to look at your Active Directory, you can just deploy the AD Audit Plus. If you want to look at your data and at a more granular level, you can just deploy clouds. You can just deploy Data Security Plus. So you have that option. But with Log 360, what happens is all of those different components are going to be tightly integrated. You have deep linking between the different options, and everything is going to show up on one console. So you can just navigate between the different components very, very quickly. That is how your Log 360 is going to be very, very beneficial for you. So great. At this point, I would like to share a few resources with you. These are both ebooks. One is an ebook on tried and tested best practices for Active Directory security. This is a very, very light read, and you get to see 8 use cases or 8 real life examples of things that can go wrong in your Active Directory and how you can protect yourself. So let me quickly paste this URL on the chat so that you can access this whenever you can. So there you go. You've got to have that URL with you right now. And the other is also an ebook, but this is a more involved read. It's about 30 pages in length. And this ebook is actually going to tell you how you can defend against DDoS, ransomware, and cryptojacking. So we'll first be taking you over how these attacks work, what attackers really do to deploy these attacks in a network, and how you as a defender can defend against these attacks. So that's what this ebook is all about. So let me quickly share that URL also with you. There you go. You've got to have both of these URLs with you, and you can access these whenever conveniences permit. Great. So that pretty much brings me to the end of this webinar. Now, day 4 happens next week. So let me remind you about that. And next week is going to be a very, very interesting session. We'll be looking at how you can solve real world challenges, and we'll be examining, attack use cases. We'll have a live simulation of a distributed denial of service attack. So we'll perform that attack live, and we'll also be performing a brute force attack live. So it's going to be very beneficial for us to see how attackers actually operate. So it is actually going to be useful for us to get into the minds of an attacker and see how they think, so that we can defend ourselves better. So that's the whole point here. So we'll have a couple of live simulations of attacks, and we'll talk about ransomware. I told you that ransomware has become all the rage right now. We spoke about the coronavirus ransomware and the snake ransomware. And we'll be talking about ransomware in a lot more detail next week. And we'll be talking about how you can use certain advanced features of a SIEM to harden your security. So all of this is going to be real life use cases and example driven. We'll do all of this next week. And the session happens on July 20th at 11 a.m. Eastern or 4 p.m. BST. So pretty much the same time. So at this point, let me launch a quick poll. So if you can take a moment to answer these two questions that have just popped up on your screen right now, that'll be really great. Question number one, which of our other solutions are you currently evaluating? And question number two is, do you want a product specialist to assist you with a free evaluation of the solution? So thank you so much. I see a lot of responses coming through. So thank you so much for that. It's always great when the audience is so responsive. Thank you so much. All right, maybe we'll just give it another 10 seconds as I see a lot more people answering. Okay, so I've got a question from Jim, and he asks if Log 360 is HIPAA compliant. Can a business associate agreement be signed? Yes, Jim. It's going to help you. Log 360 is going to help you be HIPAA compliant. So there is a particular section in the product in Log 360 called compliance. So if you just go over to that particular tab, you have all the different lists of compliance mandates that Log 360 can help you comply with. So I'm not going to say that it is going to help you be 100% compliant, but it's going to help you comply with certain clauses. So you've just got to ascertain that these are the clauses that you need to work with. And, so you can always do that. And it's going to specify what clause it helps you, it's going to help you comply with. So all of that information is going to be available for you. And in case there are certain things that the company is not complying with, you can always get alerts about those things. So it can alert you beforehand, proactively alert you in case you have certain compliance violations. Likewise, I told you that there is a component called Data Security Plus within Log 360. You can use that to a larger extent if you want to, work with compliance. Work on these compliance mandates. You can use Data Security Plus as well. Okay, let me quickly end this poll, and I have one more poll to run. And this poll is all about the session feedback. So if you can take a few moments to answer these 4 questions for me, this is going to be very, very important for me. It would be good information to know how I have done personally and how this webinar session was for you. So please help me out by answering these 4 questions.